After transmigrating into a Xinxia novel, I picked up my old trade and opened a seemingly ordinary restaurant. Perhaps the heavens thought a restaurant shouldn't have just a chef, so I ended up acquiring 3 helpers. Helper No. 1 is a delicate, blind beauty, though sightless, exceptionally good at holding grudges, so I kept him on as the accountant. Helper No. 2 is a mortal swordsman with a cold exterior but a warm heart. Though lacking magical abilities, his swordsmanship is exceptional. So I asked him to help chop firewood and start the fire. Helper No. 3 is a small black snake with a big appetite. Despite its temper, it knows some water-based spells, thus, it became the dishwasher at the restaurant. Later, the war between immortals and demons in the original story was about to break out, and my little restaurant was also affected. I planned to close for shelter and asked my 3 helpers if they wanted to leave with me. They exchanged glances. The accountant smiled and took down my baggage, the woodcutter drew his long sword, and the dishwasher revealed his dragon horns. Since the boss likes this place, then naturally, it's them who should leave. Hello, everyone, welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. I transmigrated into the Xinxia tragedy novel I had been reading. When I appeared on Grey Street, I was still holding a spatula and wearing my delicate tiger pajamas. The system that threw me here was in a hurry. Host CIE, you have arrived at Small World 7731. The world's fate trajectory has deviated due to unknown reasons. Please identify the bug and repair the plot within 2 years to prevent the world's destruction. Save the world. Who? I weighed the spatula in my hand, hesitating. Me, fight Sukuna. The system seemed unwilling to communicate with an otaku. Quickly finishing its closing remarks, the method of completing the task is unrestricted. The beginner's gift pack has been issued. Good luck, host. As the system voice disappeared, a dusty bundle appeared in my empty left hand. Inside were 10 taels of silver and a low-quality identity generator. After some research, it seems to mean that I can choose an ordinary identity that fits the world setting. For example, if I want to join the Heavenly Mountain Sword sect where the female lead is, this thing can turn into an ordinary disciple token, but bigger wishes are not allowed. I frowned, standing still and staring at the generator in a standoff. After a long while, so long that someone had already noticed me and was quietly approaching with a stick, I finally pressed the generator. A flash of white light later, the tiger pajamas were gone. I was still holding the spatula, but now dressed in ancient attire, standing in the back kitchen of a rundown restaurant. Immersive translate. 3 days later, in an inconspicuous corner of Grey Street, a restaurant called Maple Diner quietly opened its doors. I've thought about it. With my college 800-meter run time of 5.5 minutes, there's no way I could make a name for myself in a Xinxia world. So I generated the identity of a restaurant owner and comfortably settled into my initial landing spot. Saving the world is a hero's job. A humble chef can only cling to a spatula and tremble in fear. Fortunately, even in the world of immortal cultivation, my culinary skills have still gained widespread recognition among customers. It was only later that I learned Grey Street was located in a lawless zone, making it a melting pot where humans, demons, and monsters coexisted. At first, some people came to my newly opened restaurant to pick fights, saying the weak had no place on Grey Street and demanding I leave. But somehow, after eating here a few times, the customers' attitudes inexplicably improved a great deal. Although there are still people who dine and dash, those who pick fights are gone. Maple Diner has gradually become the default canteen for Grey Street residents, no longer deserted. I'm certainly happy that my cooking skills have been recognized. But problems have arisen as well. I'm clearly becoming overwhelmed working alone, especially this group of people who act on a whim. Some would skip payments for days on end, only to suddenly throw a spiritual artifact at me as payment one day, making my accounts even more of a mess. Just as I was about to write a job posting to stick outside, a group of strange customers walked into the shop. They weren't regulars of Grey Street, probably just rogue cultivators traveling north and south in search of business opportunities. They ordered a table full of fine wine and delicious dishes, and after feasting and drinking to their heart's content, they prepared to settle the bill. Then they witnessed the bizarre payment methods of other regular customers. 2 dishes cost a mid-grade spiritual artifact, a jug of wine and a plate of stew in exchange for 10 feet of mermaid silk. Even if there's spiritual energy in this dish, wait, there's spiritual energy in the dish. Those people looked at me in utter terror. as if I were some legendary demon lord, me, completely unaware of the spiritual energy and thus oblivious to the value of the collateral. A few unfamiliar customers exchanged glances, silently communicating something with their eyes. Just when I thought they were also trying to skip out on the bill, the leader rubbed his hands together, cautiously approached me, and then grinned sheepishly with his yellowed teeth. "Boss, the thing is, we brothers might not have brought enough money, do you think maybe?" I sighed, "Don't want to pay for the meal, but there was nothing I could do, who asked me to be no match for them, no. Although we didn't bring enough money, we have something else to offer you, take a look first before deciding." The man carefully led me to the backyard, then retrieved a half-person high cage from his own dimensional storage. We found him by the Fan River. Originally, we planned to sell him to Lufeng Pavilion. With his looks, he could definitely fetch a lot of spirit stones. The man abruptly pulled off the black cloth covering the cage. "It seems the shopkeeper could use someone close by his side. If you don't mind, we'd like to offer him in exchange for the debt. What do you think?" The black cloth fell away, revealing a frail beauty within, barely alive after being tortured to the brink of death. His eyes were covered with white gauze, half his body stained with blood. His jet-black hair was soaked in blood, strands clinging together in clumps. At a glance, he resembled a magnificent crane trapped in a cage by chains. Where even the slightest malicious touch could send this ailing bird to a tragic end, the human trafficker kept trying to persuade me. "Don't mind how sickly he looks now, just give him some medicine, and he'll still be usable." "Usable for what, I'm asking you?" "Usable for what?" I suppressed the urge to call the police. "All right, I understand, leave him here. And you don't have to pay for your meal, although I have no spiritual power, fortunately. The items customers use to pay off their debts are varied and numerous. I found a few bottles of elixirs labeled youth-restoring pill, soul-returning pill, and great tonic from inside and fed them to the sick beauty. It's not that I couldn't afford a doctor, but the entire Grey Street has only one clinic. And the physician there is a demonic cultivator who specializes in poison research. He only kills people, not cures them, so saving lives had to be left to my own blind attempts. Perhaps good-looking people are always lucky. After feeding him several bottles of medicine, his wounds had almost healed. It's just that he still hadn't woken up. With his rosy complexion and handsome appearance, he looked like a sleeping beauty waiting for true love's kiss. Unfortunately, I'm no prince, just a hard-working cook. Seeing that nothing major had happened, I reopened for business, bustling about in the kitchen, determined to make up for the lost earnings during the days of closure. The moment I reopened, customers, their eyes practically green with hunger, rushed in. They didn't ask why I had been closed for those few days. After all, shops in Grey Street shutting down now and then is just the norm. But today, these people all tacitly chose not to buy on credit. Those with money splurged, while those without directly pulled out their treasures. "Boss, when you're out and about, make sure to protect yourself. Yeah, don't let anything happen to those cooking hands of yours. If you have any enemies next time, just tell me, I'll take care of them for you." "Who's worthy of you?" "The boss." "Getting your hands dirty." Me, huh, I'm as busy as a fluttering moth, flipping through their old accounts while doing calculations on the scrap paper beside me. This cauldron seems pretty heavy, so how much should I credit to Big Brother's account? Can't figure it out, just can't figure it out. I'm in a hurry. And the customer waiting to check out is also impatient. Just as I was thinking about writing down a random number, a pale, slender hand suddenly reached out from behind me. "Shopkeeper, if you don't mind, leave it to me," a voice filled with laughter spoke up. And I instinctively turned around, nearly bumping into the young man's chin. His eyes were still covered by white gauze, yet he caught me as steadily as if he were a sighted person. I hesitated for a moment before handing him the pen and account book. The excessive beauty caused quite a commotion in the hall for a while. The shopkeeper truly can't be judged by appearances. "You've even got a beauty hidden away. Then doesn't that mean I've got no chance?" "I was actually hoping to marry into the family." "Get out of here, look at your sorry self. Even a blind shopkeeper wouldn't want you." "I'm not blind, but the one who's truly vision impaired." Flipped through the ledger in no time. Then he took the collateral from the big brother in front of him, the spirit-gathering cauldron from Danyang sect. "I'll count it as 500 top-grade spirit stones for you, after deducting the previous meal debt. There's a surplus of 430 stones, which I've noted in your account." The elder brother gave him a surprised look and muttered under his breath, "Your eyesight is that sharp?" I didn't understand a word about whatever sect or tripod he was talking about. All I knew was that he quickly calculated everyone's bills, and this time, not a single customer mocked him with comments like "the shopkeeper is out of touch with reality," which meant he got every single one right. The customer left, and I fell silent. The young man closed the ledger and stopped half a meter in front of me with perfect propriety. "The shopkeeper saved my life. I only wish to repay you in some small way. If I've overstepped any boundaries, I hope you'll forgive me." "No overstepping at all." I waved my hand in front of his eyes. "Are all your injuries healed now?" The young man tilted his head slightly. "The injuries on my body are almost healed. But these eyes truly can't see anything now. What little vision I have relies on some minor tricks." "Understood. The unique cultivation world technology for restoring sight to the blind." The young man asked if there was anything else I needed him to do. I glanced at the neatly categorized deductions he had sorted in an instant, then thought about my own practically illiterate accounting skills. After hesitating for a moment, I tentatively asked, "Friend, would you be willing to take off Kong Iji's long gown and try a high-paying but not-so-noble service job? 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., weekends off, meals and accommodation provided. Monthly salary is up to you." Maple Diner welcomes its second employee. A handsome and gentle, yet unfortunately blind, accountant. The accountant introduced himself as Song Changshan, saying his entire family had been killed by villains, leaving him as the sole survivor. Half a year ago, he finally avenged them, only to be ambushed by his dying enemy, which led to his capture by those human traffickers. If not for the innkeeper's kindness, I would likely have fallen into the den of iniquity by now. That Willow Breeze Pavilion was indeed a male brothel, which for him truly counted as a den of iniquity. I secretly recalled the original work. There's no important character named Song Changshan. I tentatively asked him what his life goals were. If an employee's ideals don't align with the corporate culture, long-term collaboration might not be possible. Song Changshan took the last sip of spinach soup, looking in excellent spirits. "Life goals? Nothing much, really. Just being able to sit down and have a meal with the shopkeeper every day like this is enough for me." Excited, I put down my chopsticks and grasped his hand, shaking it vigorously. "A kindred spirit, truly a kindred spirit. Who says no one likes a food-themed anime set against the backdrop of the Holy Grail War? Well, I just happened to come across one." Song Changshan let me drag him along, smiling as he asked, "Then what does shopkeeper see as ideal?" "Ascending to immortality. Pursuing eternal life." I shook my head. "Everyone talks about ascending, but how many have truly achieved it throughout history? In the original work I read, ascension was just a scam in the end. It was only through the male and female protagonists sacrificing themselves to defeat the villain that peace was restored to the world. There were never any immortals from the beginning to the end. I can't become an immortal, nor do I want to. I just want to taste all the delicacies under heaven and then create the most delicious dish in the world. When that day comes, even if I'm not an immortal, the whole world will remember my name. Maple Diner will become the #1 restaurant across all 3 realms. The owner of the #1 restaurant in the 3 realms. What a prestigious title. When people ask who I am, I can proudly declare, with familiar background music playing, the 5 glorious characters, Chinese master chef. In my dazed state, I blurted out my true thoughts without realizing anything was amiss, simply thinking I'd finally met a kindred spirit and thus was speaking more freely. Song Changshan's fingers twitched slightly as he pocketed the bottle labeled truth pill. The candlelight flickered, and the gentle beauty still listened with a smile to my endless ramblings, occasionally responding with a few words, a flawless listener in every way. Yet, if one could peel away the disguise concealing those peculiar white eyes, it would become clear that this person was utterly lost in thought. Countless crimson threads of fate intertwined in his gaze, leaving one to wonder what schemes he was plotting this time. No threads of fate, yet claiming no desire to become immortal. Song Changshan reached out to take hold of me, completely drunk, waved his hand to extinguish the candle, and carried me back to the bedroom. I had a long and hazy dream. In the dream was the original Xianxia tragedy novel I had once read, but the plot that appeared in the dream was about the past of the great villain Sun Wujiu, which was never written in the original novel. The Sun family is one of the 4 great clans in the cultivation world, unlike the other 3, which established their status through cultivation techniques. The Sun family reached its current heights because every century, a chosen one would emerge among them. the chosen one is born with white pupils. Their eyes cannot see the present but can perceive all the threads of fate in the mortal world. For generations, the Tsin family relied on the prophecies of the chosen one to avoid every crisis, gradually ascending to the top of the great clans. However, by the time of Tsin Wujio's generation, the family head developed an obsession with ascension. He coveted Tsin Wujio's eyes, believing that by obtaining them, he could decipher the will of heaven and become the first person in the world to achieve ascension. So, he imprisoned Tsin Wujio, and when Tsin Wujio grew up, he personally gouged out his eyes. Unfortunately, the gouged eyes instantly turned to ashes. As the heaven-bestowed ability could not be seized by human force, the head of the Tsin family had no choice but to spare Tsin Wujio's life. After all, the development of the Tsin family still needed to continue utilizing the chosen one, but the antagonist was no naive fool waiting to be slaughtered. He deliberately feigned weakness to lull the Tsin family into complacency and seized the opportunity to escape. Under the pursuit of the Tsin family, he was severely injured and fell into the demon realm. To survive, Tsin Wujio had no choice but to activate his cultivation technique to absorb demonic energy. He managed to stay alive, but from then on, he became a demonic cultivator. In this world, humans and demons are natural enemies, and demonic cultivators are pitiful beings who are unwelcome on both sides. After becoming a demonic cultivator, Tsin Wujio's life in the demon realm was far from easy. Even so, he still helped the human cultivators who had accidentally fallen into the demon realm, using his long restored eyes to point out a path to survival for them. Yet those cultivators showed no gratitude. Instead, immediately after escaping danger, they turned on him, a demonic cultivator, shouting for his death, even attracting the pursuit of the Tsin family, completely extinguishing the last shred of kindness in Tsin Wujio's heart. From then on, the great villain was utterly corrupted, making the destruction of heaven and earth his ultimate life goal, busying himself at the forefront of harming others. With those heavenly eyes, he became the most powerful demonic cultivator of his time. He is the annihilation demon lord of the northern realm of the demon world, the future ruler of the demon world, and the destined enemy of the male and female protagonists. He foresaw his own future, and thus approached the protagonists with malice, fabricating a false identity to become their friend, only to stab them in the back at the critical moment. This was the first encounter between the protagonists and the antagonist in the original story. That tragic and prolonged dream ended here. I woke up in a cold sweat, still trembling from the lingering panic of my dream, and leaped out of bed. I rushed blindly toward the door, only to stumble into a familiar embrace the moment I pulled it open. Greeted by the night breeze, someone, as if lying in wait, caught me with an amused smile, brushing away the sweat from my forehead with a gentle swipe of their finger. Proprietor, Song Changshan's clear voice rang out in the darkness, oddly eerie. Where are you off to in the middle of the night? The moment Song Changshan steadied me, the panic from the dream completely faded away. I scratched my head in confusion. Wait, I'm a grown adult, yet I was running around in terror from a nightmare. The worst part is, I can't even remember what I dreamed about. I awkwardly wriggled out of Song Changshan's embrace. Nowhere special, just had a nightmare. I was going to the kitchen to get some water. Song Changshan slowly released his grip on my forearm. Is that so? It's dark. Let me accompany you, boss. Immersive translate. Holding our teacups, Song Changshan and I leaned against the wooden door of the kitchen, tilting our heads up to gaze at the stars together. This is actually my first time seeing a textbook-perfect starry sky. A world free from pollution and harm does have its perks. Song Changshan didn't understand what a textbook was, but he never let my words fall to the ground. It is very beautiful. I felt a bit curious and, after some hesitation, finally asked, is that magical tool you're using showing the same world as what I see with my normal eyes? Song Changshan slightly tilted his head upward, as if gazing at the night sky with his own eyes. Not quite the same, he said, his fingers moving slightly as if tracing invisible lines in the air. Isn't there a saying that the paths of the stars foretell destiny? What I see is probably something like those paths. This time it's my turn not to understand. Song Changshan smiled. The white gauze tied behind his head fluttered in the wind and landed on my hand. If the shopkeeper is curious, would you like to see my eyes? Some say that 7/10 of a person's appearance is determined by their eyes, but even with his eyes covered, no one would deny that Song Changshan is a rare beauty. Perhaps startled by the sudden noise in the night, he had rushed out in haste. And now his appearance was uncharacteristically disheveled, no longer as neat and tidy as it had been during the day. His jet-black hair cascaded loosely over his white robe, exuding a lazy yet strangely ethereal aura, like an immortal who had strayed into the mortal world, even though I don't consider myself someone who fawns over looks. I was momentarily stunned by Song Changshan's beauty. Coming back to my senses, I pressed down on Song Changshan's hand as he tried to remove the white gauze, preventing him from exposing his maimed limb. Xiao Song, I really must lecture you about this. With your temperament, you'll get taken advantage of. How can you always accommodate others unconditionally like this? People-pleasing personalities are bound to suffer greatly. Song Changshan showed no sign of being lectured. The shopkeeper saved my life. How can you call him others? Even saving your life doesn't make it right, I said earnestly. We're friends, not landlord and farmhand. You should have your own opinions and demand that others treat you with respect. Song Changshan tilted his head to look at me, seeming somewhat puzzled yet also slightly enlightened. Friends, I nodded. Once you join our maple diner, we'll be friends for life. Song Changshan smiled again. He seemed aware of his good looks, which made him particularly fond of smiling. Her previous smiles had always seemed veiled by a mist, beautiful yet somehow unreal. This time, however, it was as if the mist had cleared, revealing the breathtakingly beautiful night blooming Sirius beneath. Languid yet utterly captivating, my friend. Song Changshan's fingers twitched slightly, as if plucking something from the sea of stars. A silver thread wove itself into a hair ribbon in his hand. Then I shall cherish Manager Xie's friendship dearly. I was dazzled by this display, but considering Song Changshan's background from a cultivation family, I didn't dwell on it too much. Just a sudden thought, is this technique of yours energy intensive? If not, could we mass produce it to create a brand feature? I got my head pressed down by Song Changshan as he vetoed my creative idea. It's very labor intensive, so I can only perform it for shopkeeper Xie alone. There's no way to mass produce it. He cupped my head with his hand and gave it a slight shake, as if trying to see if he could hear the sound of water sloshing inside. How come you're already dreaming when you haven't even gone to sleep yet? Me, friend, aren't you changing your attitude a bit too quickly? With Song Changshan's help, Maple Diner has been thriving. Before, because I couldn't figure out the accounts properly, we could only serve about 10 tables of customers a day at most. Now, the business has at least tripled. This brought a new problem to light. There wasn't enough firewood. I did ask Song Changshan if there was a spell that could function like a gas stove, allowing one to start a fire anytime and adjust its intensity. Unfortunately, Song Changshan regretfully informed me that all spells in the cultivation world were created for killing, and such non-lethal, everyday life spells simply didn't exist. Damn this cultivation world, where all the technological advancements are invested in the wrong places. So I had no choice but to leave Song Changshan to watch the house while I pulled the small cart to gather firewood in the woods outside Grey Street. This little tree branch is so straight, I love it. From today onward, this shall be this king's holy sword. Huh, what kind of mushroom is this? Haven't seen this variety before. It smells so good. I'll take it back and ask if it's edible. Dazzled by novelty, I strayed further and further off the path, gradually forgetting my original purpose. Thud, a corpse covered by fallen leaves tripped me. Dazed, I scrambled to my feet, and when I turned to see that bloodied figure, I nearly fainted on the spot. Trembling, I inched closer and checked for a pulse. Not a corpse, still breathing, but not far from death's door. The girl had a gaping hole in her abdomen, as if someone had forcibly removed an organ. Her right hand appeared to have been brutally twisted and broken, exposing stark white bones, while her relatively intact left hand clutched a broken sword, its blade dull and unrecognizable from its original form. Judging by her current injuries, this girl is already halfway across the Neha Bridge. Even if we took her to a hospital, it'd be useless. But what if, gritting my teeth, I lifted her into the small cart originally meant for firewood? I'm just an ordinary cook. Why does my conscience keep getting tested like this? I muttered as I pulled the cart back, carefully avoiding the bumps and potholes in the road. Seriously, why is this world so terrifying? Can't you all take a good look at yourselves and reflect? Of course, no one answered me. The only audience at that moment was still lying unconscious with severe injuries. By the time I finally managed to pull the cart back to Grey Street, night had already fallen, and Song Changshan was standing at the inn's entrance waiting for me. Before I could even utter a word, He turned his head and looked straight at me with uncanny precision. What kind of firewood takes so long to gather? The innkeeper shouldn't overexert themselves. Her voice was still as gentle as ever, but why did it feel so sarcastic? A beat later, I remembered. I seemed to have forgotten to leave dinner for him. Guiltily, I quickly changed the subject. Come take a look. Song Changshan propped himself up. Look at what? Did the shopkeeper bring me back a gift? I stepped aside from the trailer, revealing the figure that had been blocked from view. The familiar white robes, the familiar severe injuries, the familiar tragic yet beautiful state. I eagerly presented my treasure. Brought you back a sister who shares neither father nor mother, Song Changshan. Song Changshan refused to take in this younger sister, but still helped assess her condition, unlike me. As a native of the cultivation world, Song Changshan understood medicine. He glanced at the girl and instantly reached a conclusion as if equipped with an X-ray machine. She's a sword cultivator with decent bone structure. Pity her golden core was extracted, her dantian destroyed, and her sword hand crippled. Even if the shopkeeper wastes spirit medicine to revive her, it won't be of much use. I slapped Song Changshan on the back, leaving him momentarily dazed. Stop talking nonsense. This is a matter of life and death. How could it be a waste? There was still some leftover medicine from when Song Changshan was treated. I dug it all out and laid it in a row before him. None of these would be unsuitable for her, right? Song Changshan smiled. When the shopkeeper treated me as a last resort back then, you weren't this cautious. Despite saying so, he still took away that bottle of potent tonic. She doesn't have an internal energy system now. If she takes this, she won't be able to absorb it and might explode. Feel free to feed her the rest if you don't mind wasting them. So I confidently began administering medicine to the patient, once again enjoying the childish delight of playing doctor. The medicine was all effective, and the large wound on the girl's abdomen healed quickly, unfortunately. Although her right arm had stopped bleeding, it remained twisted in shape due to the missing section of bone. I tugged at Song Changshan, who was keeping accounts, and asked, why hasn't she woken up yet? It's been days. If she doesn't wake up soon, her muscles will start to atrophy. Song Changshan made a stroke with his ink brush and replied indifferently. Perhaps she knows she'll be a cripple from now on and doesn't want to open her eyes to face reality. It's always like this. She'll get used to it eventually. I always felt there was more to his words than met the eye. Just as I was about to press further, Song Changshan stuffed a grape into my mouth. If you're really worried, boss, why not cook her a bowl of noodles and bring it up? Maybe kindness alone can wake her up. I trusted Dr. Song completely, so I took the hand-pulled noodles made by Chef Xie himself and headed straight for the ward. As I pushed the door open, I met a pair of tear-filled eyes. In just a blink, those eyes were left with nothing but calm and rationality, as if what I had seen earlier was merely a trick of the light. Thank you for saving my life, sir. I owe you a debt, the raven-haired, snow-skinned beauty spoke. Her voice as cool and detached as her appearance, but as I currently possess nothing of value, I was about to say no repayment was necessary when I saw the young woman twirl the broken sword in her left hand with a flourish. So? Is there anyone you'd like dead, sir? I can kill them for you. Me? What the hell is wrong with you people in this world? I lunged forward and pinned down her restless hand. Stop your dangerous thoughts. I'm a law-abiding citizen. Then I shoved the bowl of noodles into her hands and declared firmly, eat. Caught off guard by the steam rising from the bowl, the girl was about to speak but instinctively sniffed instead. Then a very distinct gulp sounded in the room. The girl's face instantly turned red down to her neck. I didn't think much of it. After all, it was Master Xie's craftsmanship. Not salivating at the smell would be abnormal. This is hand-pulled noodles I made myself. Everyone who's tried them says they're amazing, I explained, gesturing the pulling motion with my hands when I saw her puzzled look. I even went to the homeland of beef noodles to master the technique. It might have been an illusion, but the girl's shoulders, which had been tense since she woke up, seemed to relax a little. She lowered her head and silently finished the entire bowl of noodles. After finishing the bowl of noodle soup mixed with tears, the girl set down the bowl and asked softly, "Are you still hiring at your shop?" The girl's name was Yu Qing, and she claimed to be a rogue cultivator with no parents, no sect, and no affiliations. As for how she got those injuries, she didn't want to talk about it, and I didn't press further. But she specifically assured me, I won't bring trouble to the shop. They all think I'm already dead. No one would trouble a dead person. Song Changshan beside him burst into laughter. Not necessarily. the gentle accountant said with a smile, using his brush to pin down a scurrying insect. Relying on fool's self-awareness won't spare the shopkeeper any trouble. I quickly covered the man's mouth and gave Yu Qing an apologetic smile. Yu Qing, however, thoughtfully touched the broken sword at his waist, as if he had realized something. Her injuries had just healed not long ago, and I didn't intend to make her do any heavy work. I originally planned to have her stay in the front as a waiter. But after dinner, Song Chengshan casually asked, "Will the shopkeepers still need to gather firewood themselves tomorrow?" The next day, the firewood Yu Qing had chopped filled half of the backyard. The broken sword, which had been tightly gripped even in severe injury and unconsciousness, was carefully wrapped in cloth by her and placed at the head of the bed. The machete in the backyard was wielded with fierce momentum by her left hand. Though it was merely ordinary firewood chopping, I inexplicably detected a hint of awe-inspiring swordplay in her movements. "Pretty handsome," I muttered to myself, peeking from the kitchen as I watched him chop firewood. "Boss, want to learn?" Song Chengshan behind me had half a French fry in his mouth, asking me as casually as a joke between friends, "If you want to learn, I can teach you any school or style of swordsmanship." I was a bit surprised at first, but then it hit me. In modern terms, his offer was probably like those empty promises friends make, like, "When I strike it rich, I'll buy you a mansion." Pure fantasy, not a shred of real gold in it, after all. Accountant Song is far too frail. I've never even seen him lift anything heavy, let alone wield a sword. Of course I wouldn't dampen his confidence, so I simply said, "Having one capable worker in the family is enough. Please let me continue being a quiet cook." Song Chengshan walked away disappointed, holding the fries, muttering as he went, "I was thinking if the shopkeeper wanted to learn swordsmanship, I could get her to give you that sword of hers. After all, it's quite a rare item." My ears perked up. Song Chengshan was a man of extensive knowledge. After running his shop for so long, there wasn't a single spiritual artifact he couldn't name. Even he said that sword was a fine piece, so it must have held extraordinary significance for Yu Qing. If I recall correctly, the original text mentioned something about a life-bound sword as a setting, didn't it? I fell into deep thought. Yu Qing insisted on not taking a salary, only accepting room and board in return. Yet she single-handedly took on multiple roles. Not only did she chop firewood skillfully, but she also quietly handled greeting guests and cleaning up dishes without a word. It gave me the illusion that I was some kind of ruthless capitalist. With two stunning beauties naturally drawing attention, combined with my top-notch culinary skills, Maple Diner grew increasingly famous, even spreading beyond Grey Street and attracting customers from outside the area, with a larger flow of people. You're bound to encounter some oddballs. I'm usually easygoing, soft fists, and in the past, I'd just endure when faced with troublemakers, but now, with Yu Qing by my side, everything is different. A 9-foot-tall brute wielding dual hammers was about to pick a fight, only to be sent flying by Yu Qing's axe in the blink of an eye. Me, who thought I was about to get stiffed again, I looked blankly at Song Chengshan. Wasn't it said that her inner cultivation had been destroyed by villains, making her no different from an ordinary person? So there's still a gap between me and the ordinary people of your world. Yu Qing seemed to understand my gaze. She pinched my upper arm and remained silent for a moment. Then she tried to use her naturally cold and aloof voice to make me believe her nonsense. "I just chopped a lot of firewood, so I'm a bit stronger than the shopkeeper." "Well, the shopkeeper is fine as they are now, very healthy." Song Chengshan clapped behind the counter. Truly a genius. Not sure if he was referring to Yu Qing's art of speech or something else. Yu Qing ignored him, holding a towering stack of dishes, and escorted me back to the kitchen. I was a bit worried about their colleague relationship, so I privately asked Song Chengshan, "Did you know Yu Qing before? Why does it feel like since Yu Qing arrived?" His words have been laced with sarcasm and hostility. "I don't know them. I've never had the good fortune to befriend geniuses." Song Chengshan slightly tilted his head, as if gazing at something invisible to others in the void. "Making enemies, perhaps, is more like it." Understood. Born under incompatible stars. That being said, when a disheveled, bearded man stumbled into the shop one day, Song Chengshan still called out to me. He fiddled with the abacus in his hands, his tone casual, as if merely making an offhand remark. "The one in the corner, if I'm not mistaken, is the world's second-ranked forging master. 5 years ago, after his wife passed away unexpectedly, he refused to light his forge ever again. Haven't you been nagging these past few days about wanting to fix Yu Qing's broken sword? He said with a hint of reluctance, the once precious item now referred to as a mere broken sword. I heard the old man has been longing for a particular dish his wife used to make. The implication was clear. If someone could recreate the dish to the master's satisfaction, perhaps Yu Qing's sword could be repaired. My eyes sparkled, and a sudden surge of fighting spirit ignited within them. When I first started learning to cook, I was obsessed with making dishes look expensive, but on the day I worked overtime to recreate the Dragon's Whisper strawberry dish and forgot to eat. What truly warmed my hands and feet was a simple bowl of dough drop soup. After consulting the guest, what I finally served him was this utterly uncomplicated bowl of dough drop soup. The beaten egg flours spread evenly over the soup's surface, with irregularly sized dough drops that were delightfully chewy and firm. The peeled tomatoes melted at the slightest touch of the tongue, blending with the rich aroma of a hint of lard, subtly whetting the appetite. The master silently brought a spoonful of the dough drop soup to his mouth. As he chewed, he suddenly closed his eyes. I nervously clenched my hands. "Are you from the Northern Territories?" the master suddenly asked, looking up at me. Seeing that he didn't seem to have the desire for a second bite, my heart skipped a beat as I frantically tried to figure out which step I had messed up, even missing his question entirely. It wasn't until he repeated it that I shook my head and explained, "No. I've just tried the local specialties there before." The master chef put down his spoon, wiped the soup broth from his beard, and gestured for me to come closer. I nervously edged closer. "Little girl, would you like to become my disciple? This old man has some reputation in the cultivation world. Even if you lack innate talent for cultivation, I can use magical artifacts to build you into a formidable practitioner." As he spoke, he was still holding that utterly ordinary bowl of dough drop soup, making it impossible to misunderstand his reason for wanting to take on a disciple. Over at the counter, Song Changshan was looking in this direction. After hearing the master's words, he brazenly sent me a private message. This person always keeps their word. It seems he's quite satisfied with the shopkeeper. To gain his favor is a great opportunity that no amount of money can buy. Is the shopkeeper tempted? I let out a long sigh of relief. The smile on Song Changshan's face vanished instantly. The master continued scooping up the dough drop soup to eat. "Agreed, then serve this old man some tea. From now on, stay by my side. You don't need to do anything else, just keep." Before Song Changshan could rise to attack, I quickly spoke up. "Thank you for your kind regard, but I have no talent for cultivation, nor any grand ambitions. Becoming your disciple would likely tarnish your reputation." I clasped my hands together and pleaded earnestly, "But if you're satisfied with today's meal, I do have one request to make." I told him in detail about my request to have the sword repaired. The master didn't quite understand. "It's just a sword. If you become my disciple, I'll naturally help you fix it. Are you sure this is all you want?" "No regrets." I frantically gestured to Yu Qing, who was standing dumbfounded beside me, signaling her to go back inside and fetch the sword. "I have no regrets." "Thank you, sir." Yu Qing's sword was indeed a rare and exceptional piece. This also meant that the materials needed for its repair were equally precious, demanding the highest level of craftsmanship from the smith. Since I was asking for a favor, I naturally couldn't bring myself to freeload the master's materials. I invited him to pick whatever he needed from the warehouse in the backyard. "We are willing to pay a hefty price for the materials in your possession, after all." Song Changshan had already enlightened me on just how valuable the items used by Grey Street's clients to settle their debts truly were. By now, even in the cultivation world, I could at least be considered a minor wealthy woman. However, blacksmiths are exceedingly rare in this world, and masters naturally have no shortage of money. Everything else is negotiable. No matter how rare the material, this old man has it in stock. But the seeds of the Heavenly Mountain Sword Lotus, they only bear one every 50 years, and the Heavenly Mountain Sword sect monopolizes them all. Hearing the name of the sect where the original female protagonist belonged, I was momentarily stunned, and my brows furrowed involuntarily. Because of the female protagonist's experiences, I didn't have a favorable impression of this place. The original female protagonist was named Yunhua, a natural-born sword prodigy. As a child, she was picked up by the sect leader of the Heavenly Mountain Sword sect and brought back to the mountain, becoming his personal disciple. She should have been a young immortal with a bright future ahead of her. But she didn't know that the Tianshan sect leader took her as a disciple not because of her talent, but because her face bore a 50% resemblance to the sect leader's first disciple. The first disciple had fallen into a deep sleep decades ago after encountering danger, becoming the entire Tianshan sword sect's unattainable white moonlight ever since. The kindness shown to Yunhua by the Tianshan members wasn't just because they saw her as a substitute. It was also because everyone knew the golden core within her body was the key medicine needed to revive their eldest senior sister. At the beginning of the story, the female protagonist is betrayed by the master and senior brothers she once trusted most, nearly becoming a sacrificial offering for her senior sister's resurrection. After narrowly escaping death and fleeing Tianshan, she ends up in the demon realm, where she meets the male protagonist, Nan Puyue, who is also severely injured. Although the female lead sect later regretted their actions and initiated a grand scum-burning crematorium, the evil deeds they committed wouldn't just disappear because of that. I've always had a deep-seated hatred for dens of scum. Even if it weren't to avoid the original plot, I wouldn't want the slightest connection with them. But if Yu Qing really needs this lotus seed, even without this lotus seed, you should still be able to repair my sword, right? Yu Qing suddenly spoke up. The master raised an eyebrow. There are alternatives, but the effect won't be the same. After all, the Tianshan sword sect is the leader among sword sects. If that lotus seed could be integrated, the sword would carry inherited sword intent the moment it's drawn. It sounded like something truly valuable, yet Yu Qing showed not the slightest hint of desire. No need. As long as the sword can be repaired, that's enough. She stood by my side, tilting her head slightly to glance at me as she spoke. I already have a reason to draw my sword. One day, I'll have my own sword intent too. Seeing her insistence, the master did not press further. He casually picked a room in our backyard, then took out his furnace from his Qingkuan bag, set it up on the spot, and immediately began refining. 7 days later, a long sword with its hilt name erased leaped out from the refining furnace, gleaming brilliantly. The ice and snow briefly melted from Yu Qing's face, as if seeing an old friend after a long separation. She reached out her hand toward the sword with rare tenderness in her gaze. The sword whooshed past, heading straight for the backyard, and then it knocked the axe off the stump in one swift motion, and with a few quick swipes, split dozens of logs. Yu Qing, me, the master, who had just wanted Yu Qing to test its power. Beside him, Song Changshan laughed without restraint, thoroughly amused as he offered a playful compliment. Always had a knack for spotting work since childhood. Well done, well done. Perhaps sensing Song Changshan's mockery, the sword ceased its wood chopping and eagerly flew over, brushing against my cheek before finally settling back into Yu Qing's palm. Yu Qing lowered his gaze, fingers tracing the faintly humming blade, his eyes veiled to conceal the emotions within. Just as I thought she would spend some time cherishing her beloved sword and was about to leave with everyone else, Yu Qing reached out and grabbed the hem of my clothes. I owe the innkeeper another life, I thought to myself. She really loves her sword. In this world, sword cultivators truly treat their swords as living friends, caring for them with such devotion. I lightly patted Yu Qing's hand and joked, "What? Are you thinking of killing for me again?" Yu Qing tightened her grip and pulled me a little closer to her. "You dislike bloodshed, you abhor killing, so I promise you this, from this day forward, as long as I draw breath, how you and I will shield you from all danger and filth, ensuring no one disturbs your peace. This I swear by heaven and earth." As the words fell, the hilt of the long sword clearly bore the inscription Bright Moon. This was the name of the sword, and also the promise Yu Qing had made to me. Maple Diner's business grew more prosperous with each passing day. However, strangely enough, aside from the regular local customers from Grey Street, the new patrons from the demon realm and the cultivation world always seemed to move with a furtive air, like a timid quail, but the silent version, enter, order, eat, and even queue to return empty dishes to the kitchen. The vibe is unfamiliar yet polite. I asked in confusion, what's wrong with them? Song Changshan didn't even blink. No idea. Maybe he was won over by the shopkeeper's charisma. I turned to ask Yu Qing. Yu Qing avoided eye contact, looking somewhat guilty. He's right. The accountant who received the agreement made an ambiguous tisk sound. I poked him hard in the lower back. Tisk what? What did you promise me? The shop's rule is to have weekends off, but Song Changshan has been busy with something outside recently, taking several extra days off in a row. Although he cast a spell on the brush to ensure the accounting work wouldn't be affected even in his absence, I still felt a little worried. mainly because after spending so much time together, I've come to understand a bit of Song Changshan's true nature. This person appears gentle and amiable, but in reality, they're petty, hold grudges, and can be ruthless when striking. I'm afraid he might quietly pull off something big, leaving us no time to escape with them when it happens. Unfortunately, no matter how much I probed, Song Changshan refused to tell me what he was busy with, only assuring me not to worry. I'm not reassured, and what's more, I don't even want to let him out the door anymore. So Song Changshan, in order to get leave, was forced to promise me that he would no longer make sarcastic remarks to Yu Qing. Since we all live together, we're like family, why can't we get along well? Song Changshan let out an expressionless ha-ha and turned to leave, his movements so brisk that there was no trace of his usual delicate demeanor. That day, all the customers from the demon realm looked as if they had escaped a typhoon. When they took the teacups, they would even thank me with teary eyes. His polite demeanor didn't resemble that of an arrogant demon but rather a well-behaved student educated under socialism. After seeing off wave after wave of courteous guests, I still had no idea what Song Changshan had taken leave for. As for Yu Qing, she never took time off, but she would occasionally leave Grey Street during her days off. Every time she returned, she'd be carrying bags of snacks and storybooks, so I simply assumed she'd gone out for leisure and never pressed further. Perhaps because the only two people in the house with any combat skills were absent, on an otherwise ordinary weekend, when I went to the kitchen to cook something for myself, I unexpectedly discovered something strange. Some of the pre-prepared ingredients in the kitchen seemed to have gone missing. What was missing was all uncooked raw meat. Even if someone was starving, they wouldn't steal raw meat to eat, would they? Could it be rats? As the words fell, a strange noise suddenly came from the corner of the kitchen. I picked up the kitchen knife and looked over warily, only to find that it was just a ladle falling into the water vat, and there was nothing near the water vat. That night, I scattered a circle of newly bought rat poison in the backyard. The next morning when I got up to check, I found that the poison hadn't killed the mouse, and another piece of pork belly was missing from the kitchen. I was utterly enraged. That piece of meat was what I had planned to use for making crispy pork belly. Realizing that this holiday was destined to be without crispy pork belly, I, having lost my dream, calmed down instead. Without a word, I chopped up a roast duck. Half of the roasted duck was carried back to my room, ready to be enjoyed with some ice cream, while the other half was casually left on the cutting board, partially covered by the bamboo basket woven by Song Changshan. After finishing these tasks, I left the kitchen without looking back. Immersive translate. In a deserted corner, a slender figure almost blending into the shadows slowly materialized. A small black snake, no longer than an earthworm, floated eerily toward the cutting board, spouting arrogant remarks as it flew. Stupid humans, who are you calling rats? You're the ones who look like rats. Truly a case of a dragon stranded in shallow waters being mocked by shrimp. How dare they even lay out rat poison to guard against me? In the past, this shabby restaurant wouldn't even have been qualified to cook for me. By the time the little black snake had talked itself hoarse, it had finally flown over to the roasted duck. Its snake mouth opened wide, revealing two tiny, utterly unthreatening fangs, and with a squishy sound, they plunged into the roasted duck. Just as he was about to swallow the roasted duck whole, the plate holding the duck shifted slightly as he moved it, bumping into the chopsticks resting on the bamboo cage. The chopsticks toppled, causing the entire bamboo cage to fall, trapping the little black snake and the roasted duck inside. Startled at first, the little black snake then burst into laughter, wagging its tail wildly. Such a foolish trap, only humans still use these. Do they really think this king is some ordinary snake? To be trapped in a shabby bamboo basket, it nonchalantly devoured the roasted duck, then casually extended its tail, intending to tear open the bamboo basket, yet the moment its tail tip touched the basket, it was as if scorched by fire. The scales at the very end exploded instantly. The already pitch-black little serpent seemed to grow even darker. After a long pause, it opened its mouth and spat out a disheveled gray smoke ring. You despicable humans. To be honest, I didn't have high hopes for that crude animal trap. Even the mice in the cultivation world are probably becoming spirits. They're definitely not that easy to fool. So after taking the first bite of ice cream, I had already put this trivial matter out of my mind. This world has no television, so passing the time relies entirely on half literary, half vernacular storybooks. But as I read on, I suddenly remembered my original mission. Logically speaking, the best way to save the world is to get close to the most righteous male and female protagonists in the original story. The female protagonist of this novel is the pitiful little substitute from the Tianshan sword sect, Fairy Yunhua. And the male protagonist is the most talented young prince of the demon realm, the half-step dragonized serpent demon, Nan Puyue. In the original story, Yunhua faked her death after having her golden core extracted. But the suspicious and malicious female antagonist intercepted her. Not satisfied with just taking her golden core, the antagonist wanted to kill Yunhua outright to eliminate any future threats. While fleeing, the female protagonist accidentally stumbled into the borderlands of the demon realm, where she encountered Nan Puyue, who had been framed and left for dead by his half-siblings. One had lost her golden core and all her cultivation, while the other had his dragon tendons forcibly extracted and was left paralyzed. For a moment, it was hard to say who was worse off. Nan Puyue needed a harmless means of transportation, so he and Yunhua struck a deal. Yunhua borrowed his cultivation to fend off her senior sister, while Nan Puyue's spirit attached itself to Yunhua's inner core to evade detection by his siblings. After that, the two unfortunate brothers leveled up and fought monsters together. One slowly reconnected his meridians to cultivate anew, while the other sought rare treasures to restore his demonic form. Like every cultivation and leveling up power fantasy novel, the male and female leads developed feelings for each other during their journey. After regaining their peak strength, one humiliated their sect, while the other defeated their siblings to reclaim the throne. Up to this point, the plot was perfectly normal. However, the author suddenly went off the rails to pad the word count, introducing an overpowered antagonist so strong it felt like a bug in the system. Sun Wuzhou possessed both formidable strength and striking beauty, with the added identity of being the most terrifying demon lord of annihilation in the demon realm. With such a setup, readers initially assumed he would be a devoted male supporting character. Little did they know, this guy seemed almost sociopathic, wholeheartedly dedicated to destroying the world, leaving no room for negotiation whatsoever. His hatred toward the male and female leads was utterly inexplicable. Every action he took was solely aimed at killing Yunhua and Nan Puyue. Without any semblance of reason, no one could tell whether Sun Wuzhou decided to destroy the world because he was so desperate to kill the protagonists, or if he despised the two destined obstacles precisely because he had always intended to annihilate the world. In short, Sun Wuzhou, this antisocial thrill-seeker, threw a tantrum and directly ignited a war across the three realms. Nan Puyue and Yunhua naturally stood on one side, with the immortal and demon realms joining forces. As for the demonic realm, the innate demonic race despised humans and had no intention of fighting for Sun Wuzhou, so they lost their lives on the spot. Sun Wuzhou smiled and declared, "Either you go and slaughter all the cultivators for me, or I'll kill you all first and then personally wipe out those cultivators." With such a demanding boss breathing down his neck, the demon race could fight 1 against 10, yet their strength barely matched the combined forces of the opposing two races. The three realms were consumed by bloodlust, the vortex of war growing ever larger, engulfing the entire world. Everything was destroyed in this meaningless conflict. In the original story I read, the final act saw Nan Puyue, who had transformed into a dragon, comprehending the heavenly Tao and sacrificing himself to forge a sword. His essence merged with Yunhua's life-bound sword, Yaoguang, elevating it to become the only divine sword in the world. Yunhua, wielding the divine sword, faced Sun Wuzhou, who controlled the fate of all things in the world. The divine sword swung forth, severing the fate threads manipulated by Sun Wuzhou with a power that transcended this world, also slaying this enigmatic villain. Meanwhile, Yunhua, having recklessly wielded divine power in a mortal body, began to crumble inch by inch, starting from the hand that held the sword, ultimately dissipating into dust. Thus, both the male and female leads, along with the great villain, met their demise. The author left only the words "it's all over" before making a hasty retreat. Of course, reading such a botched ending is infuriating. What's even more infuriating is being dragged into a story with a bad ending, only to be told, the world line has a bug. After the ending, the world was destroyed for unknown reasons. You figure out how to save it. Haha. Do I look like Pleasant Goat to you? No matter how much I jumped and spun around in private, I couldn't come up with any useful solution anyway. I may be an anime fan, But I'm not an idiot. Of course I don't think shouting things like friendship or bonds will be enough to defeat the villain. The only thing I can do is probably hide in a safer place, avoiding both the villain and the main protagonists. As long as I stay out of the main plot and run a little faster, maybe I can survive until the very end. As for the day when there's nowhere left to hide, then before I die, I'll definitely find a way to report that human trafficking system that captured me. Because I recalled the original story and the system's tasks, I couldn't help feeling somewhat agitated, and thus completely forgot about the minor incident of the kitchen theft. So it wasn't until Song Changshan and Yu Qing returned from their leave, Maple Diner reopened that day, that I remembered the little trap I had set in the kitchen. While preparing breakfast in the kitchen, I was still telling Song Changshan and the others about it. I doubt my crude method will catch any mice. If it doesn't work, maybe we should just get a cat. I've actually been wanting a pet for a while. As I said this, I casually lifted the bamboo cage covering the cutting board. The roasted duck inside the cage had vanished, replaced by a motionless little black snake. Startled, my hand slipped, and the bamboo cage I was holding fell again, landing right on the little black snake's tail. The little black snake let out a yowl and revived on the spot, but only its head and tail stood up, while its body remained completely motionless as if it were fake, despicable, vicious, and cunning human. Keeping me trapped for a full day and night wasn't enough, now you even try to murder me. The posture is so weird. Let me take another look. Huh, so tiny and slender, kinda cute. Yu Qing clearly didn't get the cuteness. The tall swordsman stepped in front of me, drawing Haiyue to press the blade against the little black snake's neck. Demon creature, how did you sneak in here? The little black snake was startled by Yu Qing's movement, its previously swaying head instantly stiffening. Not daring to move a muscle, yet its words remained haughty. She was the one who invited me back. If it weren't for her being so eager, I wouldn't even want to come to this dump. The tip of the little black snake's tail lifted, pointing at the culprit. Me? Being pointed at? I'm not. I didn't. How dare this snake talk nonsense? I was just about to deny it when the little black snake cut in. It was you who took away the branch I was temporarily staying on. You even praised me for being straight, saying you were some kind of king and wanted me to be your holy sword. Hearing this, Song Changshan stroked his chin and looked toward the demon realm, jokingly asking me what kind of territory I liked. Yu Qingza tried to stuff Haiyue into my hand, earnestly instructing me, don't play with snakes, play with Haiyue. Me, enough, don't expose the embarrassing history of my Chunibu phase at a time like this. I tried to steer the conversation back to the little black snake. So you're the little twig I picked up that day. Are you a snake demon or a tree demon then? Ignorant human, open your damn eyes wide and look clearly. I'm not. Yu Qing unceremoniously pressed down on Haiyue, causing the snake scales to crack as a few drops of blood fell from the little black snake's neck. Watch your mouth. If you disrespect her again, I'll kill you. The little black snake fell silent. The little black snake widened its eyes. 3 seconds later, the little black snake blinked and began to cry. Tears the size of mung beans pattered down, its tail tip trembling with grievance. It was you who brought me home, not like I wanted to come. You took me in and then starved me. All I've had these past few days were a few pieces of your meat. His head was small, but his mind was sharp, so he decisively turned to the only approachable human in the room. You even kept me locked in this cage for so long, and just now you smashed my tail. Even though I knew it was deliberately playing pitiful, my conscience still ached. Song Changshan glanced at the pitiful little black snake, then looked at Yu Qing, who remained unmoved and steadfastly shielded me, and suddenly burst into laughter. It was as if he had witnessed the most absurd thing under heaven, laughing so hard he couldn't straighten up, resting his chin on my shoulder. I quickly supported the frail accountant, fearing he might laugh himself into a faint. Song Hushing, half embracing me, suddenly spoke with unexpected kindness. Boss, look at how pitiful this little snake is. Why not keep him? The shop happens to be short on dishwashers. Nowadays, with so many customers, the pile of dirty dishes is indeed a massive workload. But, having a snake no bigger than a dishcloth wash dishes, the little black snake clearly found it absurd too. How dare you? I refuse to do such dirty and exhausting work. An extremely loud growl interrupted its words. The little black snake flicked its tail and silently pressed it against its own belly. Sister, it suddenly spoke in human language. I've only eaten half a roast duck since yesterday morning. I'm so hungry. I didn't expect a little snake to actually help with washing dishes. After all, I wouldn't dare employ a minor, but after the little snake swallowed a crispy pork belly, it suddenly started flying. Though only its head and tail could move, it flew with such skill and style. If you had this talent, you should have said so earlier, sis. It cheerfully called her sis with every bite, flicked its tail, and a stream of water poured down from the sky, washing the dishes as if the little snake itself were a water pipe. Just washing dishes? I'm the best at washing dishes. Yu Qing frowned and whispered to me, demons are cunning, they might not be trustworthy. I could understand Yu Qing's perspective. In their world, the three races were always wary and exclusive of each other. The idea that those not of our kind must have different intentions was common knowledge to everyone, but no otaku could resist a snake demon who calls you big sister. Song Changshan seemed to have taken a liking to the little black snake as well and helped persuade Yu Qing. With a curved smile, he asked Yu Qing in a very friendly tone. Just a minor demon, do you think you can't protect the shopkeeper from it? Yu Qing shot him a cold glare, the gleam of his Haoyu sword faintly brightening in his hand, but he no longer stopped me from keeping the little black snake. She merely brushed off Song Changshan's hand that was resting on me, saying something I couldn't understand. Whatever you're planning, don't drag her into it. Song Changshan's smile remained unchanged, but his voice grew inexplicably colder. Rubbing the hairband on my head with the hand Yu Qing had slapped red, he said, no need for you to tell me. I tilted my head. Suddenly, it dawned on me. It turns out Song Changshan really kept his promise. Not only did he stop making sarcastic remarks to Yu Qing, but he also started treating her kindly. Look, they've even grown close enough to share little secrets. As the head of the household, I'm quite pleased. Today was another day where everyone got along harmoniously, with Dahei around. I've completely freed up my hands, now I can focus solely on cooking. Oh, by the way, Dahei is the name of the little black snake. I originally wanted to call him Xiao Hei, but he insisted that a real man can't be called little. So we unanimously decided to name him Dahei. Big Black washed the bowls quickly and cleanly, solving the final problem at our diner, and so, with my 3 capable employees, I completely transformed Maple Diner into a thriving business, becoming the most famous and successful owner on the entire Grey Street. Before long, the money and magical treasures we earned could no longer fit in just one warehouse. Accountant Song asked if I'd considered opening a branch. How dilapidated this place is. If the owner is willing, I recently saw a tavern for sale in the Demon Realm. The space there is much larger, and we could move there. I hesitated for a moment, then shook my head in refusal. No, the Demon Realm won't do. Based on the timeline, the main antagonist should have already become the Annihilation Demon Lord by now. The Demon Realm is truly too dangerous, Yu Qing also said. The Demon Realm is chaotic. How could we let the shopkeeper go to such a place? But the immortal cultivation world is different from the Demon Realm. Though there are conflicts there too, it's far safer than the Demon Realm. She coughed lightly, showing rare initiative as she added. Didn't the shopkeeper enjoy the pastries last time? There's a tavern near that pastry shop that sells them too. We could go take a look. Have so many taverns been closing down lately? Those pastries were indeed delicious. I'm quite tempted, but soon. I still shook my head and refused. No, not even the cultivation world. The female lead, Yunhua, is probably slapping the face of the heavenly mountain right now. And the cultivation world is in chaos. Hardly the right time for me to open a shop there. The big black sword hanging on the Haoyu's scabbard glanced left at Song Changshan, then right at Yu Qing. After a moment of silence, he forced himself to chime in. Then how about the Demon Realm? Yu Qing swept a glance at him and flicked the clingy little snake off his scabbard with a slap. Song Changshan also politely inquired, going to the Demon Realm to see how miserably you're doing, Dahei. Dahei burst into tears with a loud wail. The Demon Realm is certainly not an option either. Although the current plot hasn't reached the point where Nan Puyue seizes the throne, it's only a matter of time. Looking at it this way, Grey Street turns out to be the most ideal location for me to open a shop. Thus, the Maple Diner branch plan was unfortunately put on hold. However, everyone started arguing again over the new issue, now that the restaurant has no spare rooms. One will need to be cleared out to serve as the new storage space. Kind-hearted accountant Song selflessly offered to give up his own living quarters. I can reluctantly make do by sleeping on the floor in the manager's room, he said very considerately to Yu Qing, whose eyes were blazing with anger. After all, Miss Yu already has a roommate, it wouldn't do to squeeze in another person. The roommate he referred to was Big Black. Dahe could only maintain his serpent form. And for some reason he refused to disclose, he had difficulty moving. In the end, he had no choice but to coil around Ha Yu's sword sheath, letting Yu Qing carry him as they walked. Later, Dahe simply took to sleeping on Ha Yu's pearwood sword stand. Yu Qing looked as if he was about to draw his sword. If it's troublesome, don't force yourself, I'm willing to sleep on the floor in the innkeeper's room. Dahe was just trying to climb back onto the sword sheath when he heard this. Lifting his serpent head in confusion, what about me then? Yu Qing was quite indifferent. Go sleep with him. Big Black's mung bean eyes widened into soybean-sized orbs, filled with terror. I don't want to, Song Changshan sneered. Who would want you anyway? The despised Big Black, provoked, angrily thwacked the table with the tip of his tail. Suddenly, he lifted his little head and asked with utmost sincerity in his tone, so why exactly do you need to leave a room empty? Don't you have a Qiankuan pouch? Yu Qing, Song Changshan, the two of them, one gripping the snake's tail and the other pinching its head, very cooperatively tossed Big Black away. Then they turned back, offering an explanation that was anything but sincere. We forgot, as if I could forget. Another 6 months passed, and I upgraded from a small rich woman to a big tycoon, with financial power that could rival the Suzuki Group, as the deadline given by the system drew closer. Gray Street remained eerily calm. Today's Maple Diner was no different from any other day. Over the past 6 months, Song Changshan still disappeared every holiday. However, Yu Qing stopped wandering out 2 months ago. As if she had lost interest in the cultivation world, occasionally, cultivators with extraordinary demeanor would come to the shop looking for her, immediately apologizing and begging for mercy, even offering piles of rare treasures in hopes that Yu Qing would accept them. Unfortunately, they never got to finish their pleas before being swiftly struck away by Yu Qing, whose swordsmanship had grown increasingly formidable. I originally thought those were people who had hurt Yu Qing before, but Yu Qing said she wasn't familiar with them. Sometimes, demons would come looking for Song Changshan, trembling when they arrived and trembling when they left. They wouldn't even stay for a meal. As if they had traveled all this way just to catch a glimpse of the famously beautiful Song. I was a bit worried about Song Changshan's safety, since I'd heard that demons were all battle-crazed lunatics. I quietly asked him, how did you provoke so many demons? You weren't bullied out there, were you? Song Changshan touched the white gauze covering his eyes and suddenly leaned against me like a little bird. Even if they did bully me, wouldn't the shopkeeper still protect me? I said, well, you should still be careful. Ordinary demons are nothing. Yu Qing can handle them with a single sword strike, but if he provokes someone he shouldn't, like that great demon lord, the Annihilation Demon Monarch, I might as well start preparing a few coffins in advance. Song Changshan nearly laughed off the white gauze covering his eyes and took a while to calm down before promising me he'd rein it in. But a promise is just a promise. Although no more demons came to the shop to see him, he still kept running out on his days off. He ran off on his own, and even Big Black got roped into it. Who knows what he said to Big Black? After a heart-to-heart talk by candlelight, Big Black suddenly perked up and announced he needed to make a trip back to the demon realm. What urgent reason could a little snake, barely able to move around, possibly have for going out to play? But when a child grows up and wants to go out and have fun, parents can't just keep stopping them. All I could do was ask Yu Qing to keep an eye on him. So on the weekly rest days, one person from the shop goes to the demon realm, while two head to the monster domain. Meanwhile, the lonely old Xie left at home can only pitifully guard his increasingly abundant treasure trove, tearfully devouring 3 braised chicken legs, counting the days. The apocalyptic war from the original story is about to begin. Might as well take advantage of these last peaceful days to indulge in a few more bites of my favorite foods. Munch munch. The diner's patrons come from all walks of life across the 3 realms. So even if I stay holed up at home, I can still hear the freshest gossip from the 3 realms. For example, the misdeeds of the Tianshan sword sect were exposed, leading to a major reshuffle within the sect. And the current Tianshan sect leader is none other than the once renowned immortal Yunhua. Or how about the chaos in the demon realm, where the old demon emperor was killed by his illegitimate sons conspiring together, at the critical moment, when everyone thought the long-dead young prince Nan Puyuai had perished. He descended from the heavens in the form of a true dragon and seized the demon emperor's throne. the timeline was progressing exactly as I had seen in the original work. But the only strange thing was the demon realm. It was true that a new demon lord named Miejing had appeared in the northern territory of the demon realm, but the new Miejing demon lord has died again. This is the 10th one, isn't it? The demon realm is also messed up, if you ask me. It's just that the title Annihilation is unlucky. Why insist on clinging to such a name? Don't you think it's possible that the same person killed all 10 Annihilation demon lords? The original work never mentioned this at all. According to the original plot, there was only one Annihilation demon lord, Sun Wuzhou, from start to finish. By the time the male and female leads became the leaders of the immortal and demon realms, the Annihilation demon lord should have already ruled the demon realm. What's going on now? No wonder the system said there was a bug in the plot. But if the villain is weakened, the protagonist's chances of winning increase. That should be a good thing. Right, so why exactly is this world doomed to destruction? The sword of Damocles hanging overhead is teetering precariously. Even if I'm determined not to complete the mission, as time runs out, I can't help but get distracted thinking about it. When I came to my senses, I realized it was supposed to be a day off, yet I wasn't the only one in the restaurant. While I was lost in thought, Song Changshan sat across from me, resting his chin in his hand and watching me, who knows for how long. "How come you're here?" I asked, surprised. Not going out to have fun. It had been a long time since he'd stayed home on a day off. Song Changshan gave a hum of acknowledgement. There hasn't been much new entertainment outside lately. Might as well stay home and watch the shopkeeper. Me, am I also entertainment? However, Yu Qing and Dehei were still not home. The outside world is starting to get chaotic now, and I'm a bit worried about their safety. I asked Song Changshan if he knew what exactly they were up to. "Save the world," Song Changshan said with utmost sincerity. After all, those two look like the epitome of righteousness. Great, not only does he see me as entertainment, but also as a fool. Saving the world is the job of the male and female leads. What does that have to do with my little assistant? But now that the news about the male and female leads has been confirmed, where is the original big villain now? It couldn't possibly be true that he was actually killed by some divine justice from the heavens. My head is so itchy, it feels like a brain is growing. No matter what turmoil the outside world experiences because of the protagonists, Grey Street remains like a secluded paradise, living peacefully at its own pace. Perhaps it's because this is a place not mentioned in the original work, but I know that once the apocalyptic war from the original work begins, even the Grey Street beyond the 3 realms cannot remain untouched. It's only a matter of time. On this day of the year when the moon is at its fullest, I cancelled all my customers' reservations and closed the restaurant's doors. According to the original work, after the mid-autumn night, the apocalyptic war will begin. Countless people are still enjoying family reunions tonight, wishing to stay forever with their loved ones by their side, yet when tomorrow's sun rises, tonight's wishes may become mere luxuries. I don't know if I'll become one of them tomorrow, but at least tonight, I hope to have a perfect reunion with my family in this world. I made personalized mooncakes for everyone. Song Changshan got lotus seed paste mooncakes, Yu Qing got Yunnan ham mooncakes, and Dehei got creamy custard lava mooncakes. As for me, of course I want every kind. After the meal, the 3 of us and the snake ate mooncakes and admired the moon by the well in the backyard. I dug up several jars of wine I had buried when I first arrived in this world. Song Changshan, who knew about wine, advised me not to dig them all up. In another 10 years, this jar of wine will taste even richer. I couldn't bring myself to tell them that this world wouldn't last another 10 years. I could only silently open all the bottles of liquor. Bowl after bowl of alcohol went down, and at some point, Dahei's stiff waist finally relaxed into a coiled snake. As if longing to slither right into the wine jar, Yu Qing carefully nibbled at the mooncake in his hand. 3 bites of mooncake, 1 sip of wine, like a programmed machine. As for Song Changshan, he was chatting with me. "Where is the shop owner from?" I let out a drunken burp. "I'm from Yunnan, from Nujiang in Yunnan, from Lushui City in Nujiang." Song Changshan, I slammed the table and shouted loudly. "Chinese don't lie to Chinese. I'm from China." The stone table was too hard, and my hand turned red from slamming it. It hurts so much it feels like my hand is about to die. I held my right hand with my left and cried bitterly. "Right hand, don't die. What will I do without you? Will you leave me alone in this cold world to live by myself?" The right hand remained silent. so quiet as if it had truly died. Yu Qing stopped pretending to be a machine and came over to massage my hand. Song Changshan pressed his lips to suppress a laugh and earnestly assured me, right hand isn't dead, it's just asleep. I paused for a moment before responding with a slow "oh," then I turned to ask him, then will you die? I also asked Yu Qing, who was massaging my hand, will you die? Without waiting for their answers, I suddenly reached out, pulling both of them close, pressing their heads against me. The big black one, who was addicted to drinking, took the initiative to slide over. Upon seeing this, I lowered my voice, you must live well, survive till the end, understand, don't go to the heavenly mountains, nor to the northern borders of the demon realm, and stay away from the water cloud heaven in the demon territory as well. Only by staying away from the protagonists and antagonists, and being an insignificant background character, can you survive till the end? The originally somewhat tipsy Dahei was so startled that his entire snake body stood upright, like a black exclamation mark. She, no, what on earth is she? Song Changshan placed his index finger vertically against his lips, signaling Dahei to be silent, as if reading a bedtime story. The night breeze carried the gentle voice to my ears. Did you come to this world to do something? With my eyes closed, I lay in the familiar warmth of a comforting embrace, pouring out the thoughts in my heart. The trafficker wants me to save the world, but I'm just a coward, I can't save anyone. Someone seemed to pat my head. If your mission fails, will you leave this place? I don't know, the trafficker didn't say. Maybe I'll just die along with this world. I couldn't hear the rest clearly. The wine was indeed excellent. Since approaching the deadline, I had rarely slept so well. In my dream, a familiar voice seemed to tell me not to be afraid. You won't die, I promise. The fuse of the Three Realms War reached its end. On the day after the Mid-Autumn Festival, the first minor conflict erupted in the cultivation world. In the original story, the cause of the Immortal-Demonic War was the antagonist slaughtering the Sin family, which led to the immortal sects launching a crusade against them. But this time, the demonic realm believed that the mysterious figure who killed Demon Lord Miejing came from the immortal cultivation world. Using this as a pretext to start the war, the moment I heard the news, I felt a fleeting illusion. It was as if, no matter how the world's timeline changed, the Immortal-Demonic War was a destined anchor point. The cause of this war could be the massacre of an entire family in the original story, or simply an ant being crushed underfoot by a passerby. The heavenly Tao has arranged countless destinies for this world, with everyone's fate intertwined, seemingly capable of outlining infinite possibilities. Yet in the end, the fate of the entire world converges at this very moment, heading toward a singular conclusion. For the first time, I zoned out while cooking and ended up burning a whole pot of food. Yu Qing worriedly carried me out of the kitchen, leaving Dahei inside to spray water and put out the fire. Song Changshan crouched in front of me, patiently wiping the soot from my face. If the shopkeeper is tired, why not take another day off today? I blinked uneasily. I have a bad feeling about this. Is the bug the system mentioned really referring to the antagonist? I always feel as if I've somehow touched upon a corner of the truth, but because I know too little, I can only watch that fleeting spark of insight vanish. 17 days after the outbreak of the Immortal-Demon War, the demon realm joined the conflict, but this time, the demon realm didn't side with the immortal cultivation world. Instead, it played both sides like a fence-sitter, as if constantly adding or removing weights on a balance scale, resisting the unknown external force that keeps the scale swaying. In the second month of the war between immortals and demons, the entanglement of the three clans did not lead to widespread devastation as it did in the original story. It was as if two chess players were locked in a constant battle, one holding the advantage of time and terrain but blinded by arrogance, the other advancing step by step, disrupting every move of the opponent. Thus, the arrogant one flew into a rage. The system wanted to eliminate bugs, so it dragged me in. The bug wanted to set everything back on track. Then its grandpa also set its sights on me. In the third month of the war between immortals and demons, the Grey Street, which shouldn't have been involved in the plot yet, suddenly erupted in chaos. Before the sun set, a loud noise came from the woods outside Grey Street. Amid the dispute among the three parties, an ordinary woods with nothing but firewood inexplicably became what two sides called a spirit-gathering ground. This is bad. A sixth sense sounded the alarm, and I instinctively felt this wave was coming for me. Immediately grabbing pots and pans, I prepared to flee with my entire family in tow, but compared to me, who was about to instantly turn into refugee mode. The other three in the restaurant appeared much calmer, originally. Each of them was already good-looking, but now paired with such a composed demeanor, they seemed even more extraordinary. However, now was clearly not the time to be admiring beauty. I picked out the sturdiest pots and had them carry them on their heads. The forest is to the north. We'll take advantage of the darkness and run south. Carrying the pots on your heads might save your lives in a critical moment. The south leads to the demon realm, though it's not safe. It's still better than staying in the war-torn area. Not much better, though. Yu Qing saw my dejected look, and her already frosty face now seemed to be swept by a blizzard of level 10 intensity. I clearly told them not to come this way. Dahei was so furious he smashed a stool to pieces. What a load of crap about a spirit-gathering site. It's just a blatant trap, and they actually took the bait. Me, still holding the pot on my head, the only one who had ever taken my pot, Song Changshan. I don't understand what they're talking about. Could the two of them be keeping secrets from the shopkeeper behind his back? Yu Qing and Dahei turned their heads simultaneously to look. One face bore the word shameless, while the snake's face displayed no shame. Dahei was incredulous. At a time like this, you wouldn't still be thinking of luring my sister back to the demon realm. Would you? Turn back. I turned around in a daze and realized that Song Changshan had somehow untied the white gauze tied behind his head. A pair of silver moon-like white eyes slowly opened, sacred and dignified, their trembling lashes seeming to hold the fate of the entire world within them. If I remember correctly, in the entire original novel, only one person was born with white eyes. My brain short-circuited on the spot, because of this brief delay. Soldiers from 3 hostile factions had already stormed into Grey Street. The restaurant's door was kicked open, and the blood-red moon in the sky cast its light into the hall. Before I could even feel terrified by this blood moon, identical to the one in the original story's ending, the human cultivator who kicked the door suddenly changed his expression and, with an almost fawning demeanor, clasped his sword and bowed to Yu Qing, esteemed sword sovereign. I didn't know it was you here. Please forgive my ignorance. Behind the human cultivator, a pair of bull horns protruded from his head as he impatiently prepared to lead his men into the shop. Hearing this, the bull-horned man looked up, but upon spotting the large black figure beside Yu Qing, he immediately dropped to his knees. Demon Emperor, year 731 of the cultivation realm, the 22nd day of the 11th month, night, a group of bandits, likely taking advantage of the chaos of war to loot and plunder, barged into my restaurant. Then, they pointed at my firewood-splitting worker and called her the Sword Sovereign. Next, they pointed at my dishwashing worker and called him the Demon Emperor. As for the accountant in my household, well, no one has identified him as the Demon Lord. That's good. It would have been better if I hadn't read the original work and didn't know that the main villain had the same white eyes as him. Haha, this world is quite humorous, isn't it? I wonder how others would react in this situation. As for me, I'm currently cringing so hard my toes are curling. Who would have thought? I kept saying I wanted to avoid both the protagonist and the antagonist, only to turn around and realize I've somehow collected them all. Looking at those 3 people with different expressions but all clearly observing my reaction on the sly, I managed to ask with difficulty, Sun Wuzhou, I have long severed ties with the Tsin family. There is no longer a Sun Wuzhou in this world. A former name, Immortal Yunhua. Yu Qing pursed her lips and explained softly, that was the name they gave me. On the day I extracted my golden core to repay their kindness, I settled all debts with them. I didn't mean to hide it from you. Oh, former name number 2. My neck creaked as I turned to look at Dahei. Before I could ask, Dahei volunteered. Dahei is what you called me. Sister never asked, so I didn't lie. So your real name is? The big black tail stopped wagging, sheepishly. Nan Puyue, ha. Turn the world to silent mode. Listen to the sound of the background board shattering. Suddenly, a sharp crack. I turned in surprise, almost convinced I had truly shattered. Turns out, it wasn't me. It turns out a piece of the sky has shattered. Me. With trembling hands, I pointed towards the cracked sky in the north and asked the 3 who were still racking their brains to come up with excuses. Am I seeing things? I said I was broken just as a joke. Heavens, you really didn't have to shatter to show me. As the sky cracked, the blood-red moon seemed to devour something, growing ever larger. Suddenly, I recalled the original work's description of this scene. On the night of the final battle in the climax, the antagonist Sun Wuzhou sacrificed all the demon race to steal the power of heaven's will, gathering the fate threads of the entire world at his fingertips. The fate threads of all living beings formed a pulsating blood moon in the night sky, and as the blood moon expanded, heaven and earth began to dissolve. No one knows what will hatch from the center of that blood moon, nor what kind of birth could be worthy of sacrificing an entire world as an offering. In the original work, the male and female protagonists killed Sun Wuzhou just before the blood moon was about to hatch. The three perished together. But what happened afterward was left unwritten by the author. What lies within that blood moon? Has the blood moon that has already appeared become the true bug that will lead to the world's destruction? But who summoned this blood moon again? It's not that I'm narcissistic, but I really feel it wasn't you, right? I gaze at Song Changshan. Song Changshan's eyelashes quiver slightly. His pure white eyes that seem to disregard all things in the world stare directly at me. Do you trust me? Shopkeeper, with his eyes revealed, the painting immortal, both holy and eerie, steps toward me one by one. He bends down before me, his all-seeing heavenly eyes now reflecting only me. Believe in a villain destined to oppose the chosen one fated to bring about the destruction of the world. Song Changshan, if you say it, I'll believe you. I said we'd be friends for life. The eerie painting fairy straightened up with satisfaction. He said, I still want to help the shopkeeper become the #1 restaurant owner in the 3 realms. Of course, I wouldn't do such a foolish thing. Song Changshan looked at the blood moon with disgust and slowly revealed to me the truth that even the system was unaware of. The truth begins with the chosen one of the Sun family, who descends into the world every 100 years. Those heavenly eyes were indeed bestowed by the heavenly Tao, but not because the Sun family was particularly fortunate. On the contrary, the Sun family was very unlucky because they were chosen by it. In this world, spiritual energy is abundant, and everyone within the 3 realms cultivates, consuming the energy of heaven and earth from birth. This spiritual energy nourishes all living beings in the 3 realms, as well as the heavenly Tao of this world. The heavenly Tao gradually awakened, transforming from a cold, indifferent eye that observed the world according to order into a person with personal emotions. He believed the entire world belonged to him. As long as he could obtain a physical form, he could absorb the spiritual energy of the entire minor world, break free from the constraints of order, and escape to the higher realm to become a true god. For this purpose, he began to cautiously probe and test. The Sun family was chosen as his experimental subjects. Those eyes were a fragment of the heavenly Tao's consciousness. Through the chosen ones, the heavenly Tao secretly observed the 3 realms and quietly planted its pawns within them. By the century in which Sun Wuzhou was born, the heavenly Tao had accumulated enough power, and the chosen one of this world's destiny had also emerged. The essential existence of the small world is, in fact, to serve the chosen one of destiny. Once Yunhua and Nan Puyue ascend, the spiritual energy of this world will gradually deplete and wither, leaving the heavenly Tao no chance to descend again. Thus, the heavenly Tao chose Sun Wuzhou as a pawn to suppress the chosen one of destiny. Villains and protagonists are inherently opposed. If Yunhua and the others do not perish, it will be Sun Wuzhou who dies. This is a fact written in the threads of fate. Thus, whether willing or not, Sun Wuzhou had to do everything in his power to kill Yunhua and the others, and when the child of destiny dies, the heavenly Tao could descend into the world at the moment of its destruction, completely draining this realm of its essence. In the original story, because Sun Wuzhou harbored the malevolent will of the heavenly Tao, Yunhua and his allies were forced into constant retreat, ultimately relying on Nan Puyue's self-sacrifice to temporarily seize a sliver of power beyond this world. Unfortunately, even though they won, the death of the child of destiny still granted the heavenly Tao the opportunity to descend, leading to the world's destruction. This is what the system referred to as a bug. The heavenly Tao of this world has developed self-awareness. This is the true reason for the world's destruction. Song Changshan said that because he glimpsed the final outcome of fate's trajectory, he originally intended to nip the apocalyptic war in the bud. As long as the demon lord of annihilation does not exist, the necessary conditions for the war between immortals and demons would be missing. But unexpectedly, when Sun Wuzhou refused to play the role of the villain, the heavenly Tao filled in with new pawns. The 10 slain demon lords of annihilation were all like this: kill 1, and 2 more will emerge. Unless I slaughter everyone in the world, the heavenly Tao will always find new pawns. as the truth was revealed. The heavenly Tao seemed to sense something. The crimson moon's growth silently accelerated. So, the thing inside the blood moon it's the physical form the heavenly Tao crafted for itself. The system, which had been offline for what felt like a lifetime, suddenly came back to life. The system's electronic voice remained urgent, yet carried a trace of relief within its urgency. Host CIE is requested to destroy the blood moon before the birth of the heavenly Tao. Once the blood moon is destroyed, the world-ending crisis will be resolved, and the host can claim the reward to return to reality. Did you come back just to spout nonsense? Do I look like someone capable of destroying that thing? The host can. According to high-dimensional calculations, the host has the highest probability of successfully completing this task. Your high-level dimension seems quite unreliable. I've been overwhelmed by a series of high-energy impacts. Slowly squatting down while holding my head like a psyduck, I'm just an ordinary cook. The bravest thing I've ever done was knocking a pervert's phone to the ground when he was secretly taking pictures of a young girl on the bus. I've never even poisoned a single mouse. No, you really want me to fight Sukuna? You can. You're the only one who exists beyond the will of heaven. My legs are still too weak to stand. If you don't find your courage, this world will be destroyed, everyone will die. Including those three behind you. I released my hands from clutching my head. Host CIE, haven't you always wanted a family? Now you have one. Can't you find the courage for them? Did the system go off to cram some anime-style motivational speeches before disappearing? Even that loser Denji could defeat Makima. Why can't you? Look back, you have your own Pachita too. Enough, you really did cram on anime culture, didn't you? As the system said, after the plot changed. The only one who can stop the blood moon is me. The cracks in the sky were already spreading to the air above Grey Street, supporting my numb knees. I gritted my teeth and stood up. The first one to stand before me was Nan Puyue, the black snake. Originally only as long as a forearm, sprouted a pair of dragon horns on its head. The black snake affectionately nuzzled against my palm, then slowly elongated. Amidst the light, a pitch-black long sword with a faint, oppressive aura landed in my palm. The voice of Nan Puyue echoed in my mind. Sis, let's kick his ass later, leave it to me, just stay behind me. Yu Qing stepped forward, reaching out from behind me to slowly wrap her arms around me, pulling me into her embrace. I thought it was just a simple hug, but suddenly I felt a warmth at my waist. Just as I was about to look down, Song Changshan in front of me pinched my chin, stopping me from glancing downward. I felt like the filling in an Oreo, sandwiched in the middle. Just about to ask if this position was a bit awkward, then I saw Song Changshan untie the silver-white hair ribbon I always wore in my hair. The eerie young man tied the ribbon over my eyes, wrapping it around again and again, as if packaging his most cherished gift. With my vision obscured by the ribbon, reality vanished before my eyes. The fate of the world unfolded before my eyes at this very moment. That blood-red moon also took on its truest form in my vision. Song Changshan gently touched my eyes, concealed beneath a hairband. His voice as soft as a dream. Go and end this game of chess. Yu Qing's sword bone will protect you. When you wake, everything will be over. The long sword formed by the moon of South Bank carried me straight to the enemy's face. Song Changshan's heavenly eye allowed me to clearly see the blood moon's weakness, and Yu Qing's sword bone granted me immunity to all damage and corruption from the blood moon. The first sword strike fell. From the blood moon extended countless crimson threads that connected all living beings across the three realms, now suddenly severed. The second sword strike, the heart at the center of the blood moon was pierced, accompanied by a sharp, wailing cry, and the trend of heaven and earth dissolving abruptly slowed. The third sword strike, as the invisible pressure of the heavenly Tao crashed down upon me, the long sword in my hand transformed into a ferocious black dragon. Biting through the heart that sought to regenerate. 1 second, 2 seconds, the world seemed to freeze at this moment. Boom, the entire world heard that faint sound, resembling a heartbeat, yet also like a weak explosion. The cracks in the sky ceased. And after the immense energy burst, it slowly absorbed the energy, mending the fractured areas. The heart of the heavenly Tao exploded. All living creatures within a radius of 10,000 miles were knocked unconscious by the shock. Centered around Grey Street, whether they were fleeing, fighting, doing good or evil, all looked up at the sky in unison at that moment. The invisible shackles binding this small world suddenly dissipated. That night, all living beings fell into a deep slumber. The moment the heavenly Tao's physical form was destroyed, the force of the energy explosion knocked me unconscious first. Fortunately, the system still had one last use. The moment that heart shattered, the system settled my mission for me. Otherwise, falling from such a height would have left me either dead or crippled. Congratulations, host CAE, for successfully completing the mission. Settlement in progress. Please wait. Under the enormous loading text, my eyes rolled back as I fell into a deep sleep. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself standing in front of the familiar kitchen stove. Before me was the kitchen god portrait I had pasted up myself. The gas was on, and in the pan was an egg I had just finished frying on one side. I looked down and saw that I was wearing my all-too-familiar pink tiger pajamas. What's going on, system? No response. Song Changshan, Yu Qing, Dahe, no response. I stared blankly at the kitchen I had personally arranged, pinching my cheek as if waking from a dream. Not a dream, so I'm back. Wait. You just kicked me back after completing the mission without even asking for my personal opinion. I couldn't stop roaring inside, yet my chest felt so stifled that not a single word could escape. It wasn't until the smell of burning eggs came from the pan that I frantically remembered I hadn't turned off the stove. The fried eggs were inedible, and I had no appetite for breakfast on such a morning. I could only change my clothes and go to work at the shop, my mind elsewhere, in reality. The small restaurant I run is also called Maple Diner. The restaurant isn't large, but the income it generates is enough to afford such a small storefront in the high-priced magic city of Shanghai, which is sufficient proof of my exceptional culinary skills. So before opening each day, I would proudly strike a pose at the entrance with my hands on my hips for a while, but today, I wasn't in the mood. Silently, I rolled up the shutter, hung the "Open for Business" sign, and then pushed the door open to enter. Inside the room was an antique-style layout I had deliberately arranged during my previous obsession with martial arts novels. I was about to turn on the light, but then I saw a familiar, eerie young man fiddling with a computer at the restaurant counter, muttering softly, "This thing is quite peculiar." I stood frozen in place. "Successfully settled for you. According to the main system's calculations, rewards are being distributed to the host." All right. The familiar system is still playing its usual role as the time-traveling trickster. I wanted to curse it, but suddenly my heart felt like it was filled with lemon-flavored candies, sour, sweet, and a little swollen with pain. Probably hearing the door open, the person behind the counter looked up, and the two who had been arguing in the back kitchen came out to the front. "Boss, good morning. Are we opening for business now?" The end.